Good afternoon. It's been a while. Okay, making sure everything looks connected. I think, yes, everything looks green. So it's been a while. I just found some time this afternoon to do more work on Urban Farmer. The last stream was, I think, 1.5 months ago. Uh, I have continued some of the Excel work since then, but my schedule. I've been busy with like writing the book. It's a book about Blender and Godot engine. So whenever I had time, I did a few changes on this Excel file, creating this system of data manipulation. So that's what I'll continue today. And hopefully soon I'll create a devlog to talk about the roadmap for Urban Farmer. But for the time being, my priority is the book. So as soon as the book is at a point where I could keep the pace of writing, sort of go hand in hand with Urban Farmer, then I'll do more streams, and there will be much more solid Urban Farmer development. So I believe this section was pretty much the same last time. I made a few additions here. So we'll continue that work today. So first things first, this redundancy removal process that works very fast now. There used to be a button to remove just the FM16, the rows with the FM16 value in report type. That functionality is now merged into bigger functionality because where is AJ1? So this is the snow field. We figured out that this is a better field to parse than AL1. So for example, we need to take this 1 centimeter of snow accumulation and extrapolate that information to the previous rows. And of course, not every row here is a candidate. For example, this one and this one, they should be removed, this one too. So we needed a row cleaning system. And cleaning system depends on the dates. In this case, we don't want the rows with this value, but when we get rid of those, then we still have some rows where we have in between hours. Well, these two will be removed because of this, but in case these two are FM15, we would have these rows kept. We don't want that either. So this deconstruct date is also removing some values that are in sort of exact hours or in between exact hours. So in this exercise, we are going to have only 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock left. So let's hit the button. And now we are getting rid of FM16. We are processing the rows. Once that's done, it splits the date into chunks, year, month, day. Also, it cleans up the hour, and it's finished. This is just the log here. It's done. We also have an identification system. This may look redundant, but it'll make sense. Let's first look here. So in this exercise, we got rid of those interim values. So we have the say the like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, the exact numbers. This field is gonna go away. I could actually put that in the functionality here to automatically delete it. For now, I'm keeping the date field so that I can. There was a reason, like for making sure some other things are working, and eventually I will remove these three too after the full operation. And this is the first hour of the first day of the first month. This is midnight. But as far as ID system goes, this is really the first available data point. So the game will look at the this hour's wind, visibility, temperature, conditions. So you gotta start somewhere. We could assume that this ID system starts at 0. We want to consider it as an array based. That's an easy fix. We just have to remove it in this formula, this +1. But right now, this is doing something crucial for us. It's populating these IDs based on the hours for that day and for that month, which means that if we click validate data ID, we'll be able to see if there are missing hours. In fact, here we have the data is not always complete. I mean, this may be due to some bizarre values that are cleaner removed accidentally, but that is not the case, and I'll show you why. Actually, I'll talk about why, because I've seen cases where there are there's like 4, there's a difference of 4, and to have that many things accidentally removed by our code is unlikely. And I checked the dates before the removal, and it's not something this guy accidentally does. The data is missing. In fact, in some other countries, there are a few days missing. It's not just a few hours missing. Like in this case, this is just 1 hour missing. But we have a few days missing. Then suddenly from 615 it jumps to like 670. 2-3 days worth of like times 24, that kind of thing. So then I where is it? This one. So actually before this, let me click this again. Okay. Now that I'm at this ID, I can do this. I just want to add 1 day, and it figures out the missing value, so it fills it. This is not filling out the missing weather data points. It only fills the date. So today I'm going to write mechanisms to fill out the 6 crucial weather data points. That's going to be the exercise for today. This has 2 parts, but I'm calling it sextet, like the 6 important pieces. And of course, this whole thing started off when we were discovering the snow field AJ1. So it's sort of like we fixed more stuff, necessary stuff, so that we come back to the core issue in hand. Also, let's keep going to this interface here, and 1 more day. Let's do more validate. So in this case, yeah, we have we need 79, 80, and 81. So we have 3 hours missing. This field should probably be named number of IDs. So we need 3 IDs, so we just add them, so it automatically fills in. So this is the plan that I'm going to follow most likely. Let's spread the wind. With the bits, wind is done. And of course, when I did that, I should have done the wind splitting before, so that the day ID could be at the right place. So I was 1000 something. I'll see the gap here. There. No, after this, there it is. Okay. So for example, when this interface is open, and maybe we put that here. So how do you fill this out? So we can randomize it between the minimum and maximum value. Or we could say, well, every hour things are gradually changing. There's seldom a change where from 50 that you go up to 300. However, this is an interesting case because this is about the degrees. It's like the compass, and I believe 10 and 360 are essentially the same kind of like north direction, right? So from 360 to 50 is still north northeast, that kind of thing. So it's still not a big change. I think a big change would be from 360 to 180. That's like the opposite. Or from 90 to 270 is the opposite. But things are usually fluctuating by 10 or 20 degrees here. The difference is gradual. So we could apply a rule here. Of course, similar but different rules should be applied here. This is the speed. This speed is again this could be done in units of 1. So, for example, like from 62, it could be 61 or 63. You could actually look at the pattern here and say, well, it was sort of decreasing, and here, I guess in between these 2 hours, it should be going up. We could fill these hours, I don't know, this could be 70, 78, and 85, then 93, something like that. So this has to be done in a smart way. We cannot just hard code things. Well, we are kind of hard coding in a sense that, but there's some logic. And ideally, I shouldn't think about what I have to fill, that I will click buttons. So it will do it for me. And if I do it on an individual basis here, I can eventually say, well, you were here, you needed to fill 3 days or 3 hours, 3 IDs. Okay. So as you're adding a day value here, or I keep saying day, but I'm referring to data point for this missing hour here, 3 hours. Go and figure out the missing data values too. That could be all merged, but I have to implement it individually right now. And eventually we'll get to the snow part. So that's essentially today's program. So we will add more stuff here. So let's start with the most basic case that we go and fill out the like for example this part. I may have to close this file and restart the cleanup process so that I could find the problematic data ID. But for now, we know this is a problematic data ID that we have to fill. So, and I believe we'll do this here first. So, let's put a caption here. This may all be gone, but for now, let's say data. Let's call it sanitizer. And because we have hand sanitizers, this is a data sanitizer. Let's just be more specific. Okay. So what do we need here? It's as if this needs to know that we are doing it for wind. So let's start with a button. Okay. This button will probably say wind. And then as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, where is frame? Text box, frame. Let's call this frame pillar. Okay, let's stick this in here, and then this can go here. So when we click this button, why are you command button 1? Because yes. Pillar wind. Let's do the opposite. Instead of wind filler, ceiling filler, everything is a filler, and then we type the type of filler in the end. Go back here. Filler wind. When we click that, what happens? Hello, sir. How are things? Have things improved for you and your family, girlfriend? I think I'm going to turn on the timestamps. There you go. I think I might have missed your message. It's you sent it 3 minutes ago. I hope you are still there. And that everything is good on your end of the world. So let's start with the most basic cases. We need to put some message box to the user, in this case me. I do remember doing some basic check here. We have access to selection. What does selection give me? I know it's an object. Could have properties. So essentially when you call an object, this is triggering its internal toString. This may have methods that are not available in IntelliSense, but I could find it in documentation. So let's run this. So this is the selection, and we say wind, and there's a type mismatch. This is actually what happens sometimes. This doesn't convert it to string. Oh, everything is okay. Was dangerous like a few weeks ago. Yes, that's the early days, right? The first week of March or so. Well, I hope things look up for you, so, and everybody else over there. I don't want to like step into your privacy, but maybe only thing I can say for the viewers, like you live in Ukraine and you were very close to the border as far as I remember. I hope everything looks up. Yeah, it's only at east. Kharkiv, yeah. Yeah, well, like the world doesn't have enough real problems. War is never a good thing for nobody, but the species, I hope, is smarten up. It's the only thing I can say. So, selection object. Selection object. I know it's somewhere here. The range object. So I wonder if selection is a property of another object. Like say active worksheet selection, worksheet object properties. Are you still in Kharkiv, by the way? Selection in Excel. Type selection. You are still there. Good luck. You're in a safe district. Okay. That's good to know. So selection is applications property. Why did I not see application here as an object then? Oh, I did. And then properties selection. That's what I was looking for. Maybe, oh, anyway, it expanded to this. Maybe I wasn't under right place. Let's see. Only air bombs blow up. Whoa, yeah, wow, that's close enough. It's sad, really. It is sad. So this by itself doesn't have methods. That's why I've been, well, it actually does. Selection has a clear method, but they are not listed. A variable that represents an application object. So it's as if this itself is, you could trigger the methods that are part of application. So application under methods, we will have clear, and we don't. This is all weird. This doesn't make any sense to me. Because we could do this for each cell in selection. I get that. So this is like iterable. And you could do selection.clear. The IntelliSense doesn't bring any help. So apparently this works, but when I do control space, nothing comes up. That's not useful. What I need at this point is that if this method is a valid method, in fact, let's actually do that. Let's do something like this. Let's comment this out. Let's do this. Meaning, I have this interface here, and I have a selection. I press this and I want to clear the selection. Oh, clear as delete, like clear like that, not this, or like, you know. Nevertheless, it's the same problem. Where do I find these methods? In here. The reason why I'm asking that question is because if I can find this method listed here, I can look at the other methods available to me. Since the list is not coming up, returns the currently selected object on the active worksheet for an application object. Use the select method. I actually use the select method in application or range. That's fine. The returned object type depends on the current selection. For example, if a cell is selected, this property returns a range object. I think in this case, I need this. And if I look under methods, I will see clear. Good. Gotcha. So instead of clearing, what else can I do? Let's see. Calculate. This is definitely not. I think I'm kind of formulating, in my mind at least, what I'm going to do. So I will probably treat this as an array instead of a loop or iteration. What I need is access to the first and the last selection, or last cell in the selection. So I can fill in the middle values. If it's a range instead of a method, what if I do this? Say, imagine we had values here, something like this. Instead of selecting this, what if I did something like this? And if we had multiple empty cells, multiple rows here, and I selected, either way, this is a valid selection. And I said, fill out the values here. So it is smart enough to do this. What's the incoming value? What's the outgoing value? Instead of doing this. So since I'm in range, properties wise, see, this is the dumb thing about the language. It says it's a property and yet it kind of acts like a method. You can already see it here. Using cells with an object qualifier is equivalent to active sheet cells. So let's try it again. So if selection is a range, this should be possible then. Just this. Doesn't matter. I could actually have this too. Or this. It doesn't matter where I do this. It's empty. If I do this, it's 310. If I do this, then it's a range. If it's a range, then I have I know I can use this somewhere else, but can I actually incorporate this into my logic? Active cell. How about I do this, if it's possible? Selection.rows. Keep looking. Because I know column exists. Similarly, row and rows exist. Returns the number of the first row of the first area in the range. Worksheet rows. So just the row. How do I know the last one? 1023. This is good. Because I can do -1 here. Doesn't matter. How do I know the last one then? And why did this fail? Because this is a different object type. Returns a range. Same old problem when you say cells. It's a complex object. The toString method doesn't return anything compatible. Not it. The range object has its own range property. Okay, this is probably what I want. But no, this. See, they say parameters. When they say parameters to a property, it's a method, man. It's not a property. Yeah, it clearly works like a method. That's why the syntax is actually confusing, because I kind of want to extract something out of it, not pass something to it. Kind of doesn't matter how I do it in the code, but in terms of documentation, I'm looking in the wrong place. That's the problem. So row gives the first item in the selection. How do we, is there something like end? End. But this was doing the selection. It takes it all the way. Yeah, this is not what we want. Returns a range object that represents the cell. But see, when I do this, it will take me directly to the end. We don't want that. Current region. How about this? Current region offset. This is, well, if it returns a string value that, okay, what's the address here? These are all optional. This might be, so range, which is this selection returns a range, which is address property. Go for it. So something like this, wind. It's age and 24. So we are on the right track. Now there is also address local. This. What's the difference between this one and this one? The string, okay, let's do it this way. Smarten up. This versus this. String value. I see. The other one is range reference. In the language of the user, I see. This I think they should have labeled this locale with the E at the end. That's how it's anyway, I have enough stuff to bitch about today. This should not be one of them. Yeah. Let's also look at these areas. Oh, this is when you have multiple areas. Each area has its own range. Okay. Just want to exhaust my options. Cells, we figured this out. This is not returning anything. Now, with the address. So, default value is true. So both were true here. The reference style, the default value is XLA1. Is there a different way of returning this? Let's see. It could be relative too. It's like R1, C1 is the next row, next column, that kind of thing. Okay, let's say false for the first two. Row absolute, column absolute, false. And let's do that separately here so it doesn't bring I'll copy it. Something like this. Like this. And then I'll type the column absolute too. And all this is message box. Okay. So there is no separator. We got rid of the dollar signs. Reference style. This is Excel reference style enumeration. So this is the default one. I'm curious about this. Excel reference style. There you go. You do blah blah. This should work. This one. What is that? It's reference style. The first one is interesting because it's the row right before this one, right? 1023. I like that. What is C7? When you say 1023 here, because rows start from 1, so I'm assuming this is C1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's the one before. That I don't like. It's easily fixed though. By the way, these two could be true, and I'm curious initially when it said dollar sign, what is it going to do now? Oh, now it's yourself. I can work with this too. I need a separator though. Is there anything else here that I can use relative to variables? These are false, and reference style is this. You must include a starting point for the relative reference. I see. Like, what is this range compared to some other point? So I could arbitrarily pass the next row and column to get the exact point where I am. If this is always putting the one up and left. Or this could be an arbitrary useful thing, but either way, I'm gonna have to split my value. So the value that I'm going to split is going to be something like, let's write a stupid function here. Function. This is how we wrote functions. I think we did. I'm coming up with a dumb name. I'll probably change this. Range splitter. This should take a string. Str string. Actually, let's just do this. So split str. What's the delimiter? Delimiter is C. This is gonna give an array, right? So this is by default true. So when we do this relative style, we pass this into split range. Damn you. So this should give me something like R1000 blah blah and some number, which is probably 8. 8 or 7, I don't care. Either way, I'll know it's doing its job. Unless, of course, I'm casting array to string. If this is returning an array, so give me the 0th value. There you go. Unlike some other programming languages, I don't think there is array to string in VBA. So I know it's an array. This is the 0th index. This should be split here. So let's see. Let's write some comments here. What do we need? We need pre-selection. Pre-selection row. We need post-selection row. We need, I will call it active column. In fact, if I recall, we could actually get active column, even active cells column. We could get this for the range too. So it could be this, and it's 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's good. You know, I kind of feel dumb. What if I got row? That's only going to give me this row. And for this, and 24. So I have access to, okay, it was about the last part, right? And I hope that this would give me that, which is an array. And this always gives me the first. Wait a minute. So its toString method always returns the first selection. So There is no selection as argument. Yeah, you need to construct a range there. You deranged thing. So active cell column is fine. Pre-selection row is kind of okay too. Post-selection row is a problem. By the way, when I did this part here, this part kind of worked for getting the first row, but I did that based on one cell selection, not a range. I may have to simplify this to see the, here we go, to see what is actually happening. Because how do we get the last one? Forget about split range. Just say selection address. And everything is default. This will most like, yeah, okay. This is, yeah, we need to do some other splitting. Okay, this is looking more promising because now I can do this. Okay, so you still give me the column this way, so which way is better? If I split by column and then dollar, I get the first row and the last row. Whereas with the other one, whereas with this one, I do column, and I have to split by C and then another R. Okay, so this works better. So I do split range. Something like struct in okay, I'll construct an array here and I'll do it that way. So split range, okay, we'll assume this is an array and we'll say this is you don't just do it that way, you do it like how did I do the array other times? I did array I simply put the elements of the array here comma separated. So okay, relax, I'm doing it. str still comes in. We split this by I'm still writing, so relax. This is an array. So picking a very stupid name. Colonized. So colonize is an array. Colonize 0 is going to be okay. Then you do dollar separation, but when you do dollar separation, it's going to do it from here. So I need to do $2 separation or splits, or let's change the tune a bit. So the first part, we'll do a split. Anything, doesn't matter. Delimiter is this limit. Limit as long. Better look at that definition. I don't remember something about how many times it is a function. It's not it. Split as worksheet has a method split. No. They put it under workbook. This methods split. One of these motherfuckers has it. So sick of their model here. One of these things, active something, has a method. And of course, anything that looks like a property is essentially a method. So I wouldn't be surprised seeing it somewhere in worksheet, properties. Split. Split. Split delimiter. Split function. There you go. So where is it here? It's under reference functions. Okay. Some other functions are part of worksheet. That's why it's confusing. This is like a VBA specific function. So it's under reference. Under language reference. So it has nothing to do with Excel. It's just a VBA specific thing. Okay. Limit optional. Number of substrings to be returned. -1 indicates that all substrings are returned. All substrings are returned. So if I do $, it's going to return an array of 2 items, and the second item should be the number that I'm seeking. There's only one way to find out. So -1 is, we are not limiting it. So we say your delimiter is $, and this is going to return an array. That's 2. However, you don't run this on str, you run this on colonized 0. This is the left side of the column. And we do something like this. And you get rid of this. I do not want this anymore because this was more difficult. So I just want to pass the address, which returns an array. Because we cannot message box an array, I have to take the 0. If I take the 1, I should see the end row. This is gonna give me the pre-selection row. Can I do this message box prompt? Can I chain prompts? Anyway, this is the beginning. 1023, which is good. Now if I do this 1, you should see the end row. Now is what I want to answer. Can I do something like this? I cannot because it's about... Okay, anyway, my answer is right there. So where do we want to go from here? So since I have the selection, I don't need to know the inclusive start and end. I need to know what's coming right before and right after, meaning this is actually -1 + 1. So now this should say 1022 because it's this row. And then I should get 1027 if I do this. There. That way I can also do this. See, that's not exactly a range. But assume it's this. This will work. Okay. So when it's single cell, what's happening? Selection address. Oh, there's nothing to split here. This fails. If colonized, you can actually debug it, and I bet we'll see colonized here, or str as a. It's not going to be. It's not going to have this thing. It's just going to have one cell, one column number, not separated. Yeah, we used to have a pair of row and column and this in between. When it's single cell, we don't have anything in that structure. So, for example, debug, there you go. So this colonized. Yeah, this is exactly what's happening now. Do we have access to some of the string methods that I do know in different programming languages? Let's say this is a string. Okay. Something like has, contains, Let's see. Reference functions. We have so this can go two ways. You can either have a method that you can chain to a string, or you can have a separate method like split that actually takes a string. So it could very well be under functions. Split. So something like for example, if we want to do substring, would that be a separate function? It isn't here, so maybe it's sort of chained to the string object. Let me get another page here. Data types. Let's look at the string data type. Functions. In str, in string. Okay, we could use this. Start, string 1, string 2. What is start? Optional. Okay, starting position. Required. String expression being searched. It's hold on. Sorry, it's the incoming cell reference. This is what we are searching. Returns a variant specifying the position. And I believe things like this usually return -1 if you cannot find it. Oh boy. Okay. If string is not found, it's actually 0. But what if you... Oh, it assumes that when it finds it at the beginning, position is 1 instead of 0 indexed. So 0 is the normal, -1 in other languages. Okay, it's a bit weird, but sure. So we'll do it something like if in str, there's also strb and rev. From the end of the string. I'll be okay with the other one. And this one also has b. Okay, let's not mess with that. So the start, I don't care about the start. We do string 1. Why am I having a hard time writing this today? Normally it would bring me the argument list. That happens because I have if here. Which other function was I using? Let me check my utils. I think I did my own. Like say this one. Look in. Okay. Okay, I'll go with this then. Where am I? If in str string 1 is str, string 2 is what we are looking is this. Okay, if this is not 0, then this separator. What? Expected, yeah. List separator. So when this is optional, I think I need to pass the named other examples here. Okay, so we just don't pass it at all. Okay. VB script. This is it. And if there's else. Sometimes you gotta pass the named arguments, sometimes you don't. Sure. This is garbage. Might be needed, but we'll see. This is what we wanted to do when the things are in a range. When they are not in a range, then it's what was the format? It's just $, right? $H, $something. And because we know it's always doing it, we'll do something like this. This is not colonized. We are directly taking the string. And the second one is column. Actually, the first one is the row. That's it. And we also want to do -1. And yes, you're totally right. This has to be an array, and the array's first value should be this. There's a problem here though. If I set this to 0, things will work. Let's go look at the range properties again. Question I'm trying to ask is, does the range know how many rows are in the range? It's just one row. Then we will say it's the cell itself. If there are more than one row, then we are already running this case. Problem is, at this point we already need to know whether it's multiple row or not, because right now if we call this to assign this to, for example, here, this will fail because this will fall under this situation, and this array will only have one item, whereas I'm trying to access the second item. This was written based on this having two items, assuming it was a range. It's kind of like a chicken and egg problem here. You need to know if it's a multiple cell, so you could call this, assuming this will run. Oh, not assuming, but kind of knowing that it will run. Then you need to change this to 0 so that you could access this. But here's the thing, no, I'm answering my own question here. When it's single cell, when I have access to this, +1 is also the one right after. That way I satisfy both cases. But here I'm doing a partial selection. Okay, gotcha. This will work. This one. Single cell, formalize, wind. Type mismatch, something here. This could very well be, if it's not 0. Sometimes it's weird like that. Okay, and so let's do this part. Okay, 1026, which is good. Okay, we know this is working. And actually, this is our old case with the multiple cells. It's going to give 1023. Good. Now, when it's single cell, so then this was working anyway. When it's single cell, it's str. Maybe this is not giving a good. Let's do a message box of message box. Split this. H. See, why is it giving H? What's the problem? H is a column. Oh, it should be 0. I may have to change that, but you know what you should do? You should do this. It's gonna give an error though. I can not. Just arbitrarily, prematurely hit this. And it's going to give an error here because whatever. Let's expect it. We'll fix it. Where are we? Here. Okay. So when I did the split by dollar, I thought, yeah, the second item would give me this. Yeah, that's fine. So I thought this was splitting infinitely, that I could get H. Yeah, like this, say, no. Like if this is gonna give me age, this was supposed to give me the 10 something. That's the whole idea. Do you double split here? Okay. This should give me this good result. This will give me age, and that's expected. What's happening here? Like it's as if... What? The fact that it's empty for this one. Like this has to be trimmed. Then. This is fucked up. Age. Okay, this is one of those frustrating moments. The language is working against me. So in this case, here, if that's the case, then all this has to be 2. And that's the end of it. So you do this. So you get 1023 as 0. Here you get 1025. Bingo. So now we can actually do these 2. Okay. So to fill a single cell, we know the previous row, we know the succeeding row. And for a range, we are able to do that too. And I want to write this a little bit better. Because I see redundancy there. So let's pretend this is let's call this string to split. Okay. If this is the case, then string to split is this. This is gone. Actually, we still need else. Otherwise, it's this. So if it's multiple cell, which means the string has column. I wish there was a better way of doing this, like if selection is multiple cells, that kind of thing. Maybe there is, but I just looked it up. Then split it by column. Otherwise, that's it. And then the range is this. So this will work too. 1025 is that. And then when you do this, we are going to get 1026. String to split. Well, I broke it. What is string to split? It's an array, okay, because you split it. So that's good news. Oh. Yeah, that's what I... So when I split, it's an array, but here it's the string itself. Yeah, I thought I could kind of keep this format, but it was being... Yeah, undo. And you can only undo. Where are settings options? There is no undo for history. No. Okay, let's write it again then. Let's actually pretend it's this string to split. This could just be here. It even be it could be it is actually an array. Doesn't matter because it's a variant. Then I cast it to array here. So if the string has column, then split it. It's the string to split. Okay. Actually, just call it colonized. I don't care. Okay, and then colonized 0 and 1 is this. Otherwise, you create an on-the-fly array here, and it's essentially the same array done twice. That's it. I thought I could actually keep this format here by consolidating this part, assuming it would actually be here too. It did not work that way. For this, 1026 is good. For this, 1025. Again, for this, 1026. This is good. And this could very well be... Oops. Uh, 1024 And for this range, it's going to be 1023. Good. Now we can get to the real work. But this method we wrote here, we will use it for other pillars too. So that's the beauty. That's the beauty. Okay, everything looks good. Otherwise, Discord, and I'm checking messages. Everything looks good. Nothing needs my attention. So we could do something like predecessor is a variant. Predecessor is this. And then we have successor. And that one is 1. Now we can do the extrapolation. Let me look at the wind stuff. This goes between 1 and 360. Really? Oh, that's for the okay direction. That's what I'm talking about. But okay, I'm a bit confused. Let's open our good old what you call it, documentation. Where is documentation? This one. I'm actually going to take that documentation. Put it here. And we are looking for this. Not quite. I think it's this is close enough. Sig L1. Close enough. I'll just scroll up. Visibility. There. Wind. Wind observation, direction angle. The minimum value is 1. Maximum is 360. Between true north and the direction from which the wind is blowing. Scaling factor is 1. So sometimes you have the scaling factor as 10, like in speed rate. Which means that whatever value you see here, you have to divide it by 10. So essentially, 856 would mean 85.6 meters per second. So we don't do that kind of scaling. But separate from the scaling, observation-wise, what I have noticed is that this is always increments of 10. except this missing one, that's fine. So 360 could actually be 0. When we see 10, it's 10 degrees. So we never really have 1 degrees, or I mean 1 degree. We don't really have anything between 360 and 10. It's suddenly like from 360 or 0 to 10, and then there's 20. So it goes in increments of 10. Which means this extrapolation will work between 10 minimum and 360 maximum. And this is a separate effort. This will always be true anyway, because it's always like 10 is always in this range. This is not checking if the range is increment of 10. That's not this guy's responsibility. But this still complies with the document. So when we are going to fill stuff here, how do we handle this now? Let's pretend this is the range we want to fill. So we have access to 300 and 310. In some cases, this range will be dozens of cells. Thinking of the case where it's 350 and 30 degrees. Or something like this. Let's get a compass. Something with more like numbers on it. This one. If only this was rotated, this one. So from 330, if we go to 30, something like this. That would actually be a smooth change. Similar to the way you go between 300 and 330 or 30 to 60. We discussed earlier that we wouldn't want to see a change like from 30 degrees to 210. Problem though, if we go with linear interpolation, something like, well, between 30 and 90, if we have 6 cells to fill in, maybe do increments of like 10, so it's like it's 40, 50, 60, and then you fill out, right? If you do that for this one, then you have to go like 30 to 90 to 150, 210, 270, and 330. I missed one, but it's the same idea. So then the transition will look somewhat gradual, but more abrupt. Whereas spreading 6 values in this distance is better case. So and this might be the problem only for wind direction, right? Let's see. Because this is when we have the circular stuff. Visibility, it's just this scale. Temperature and dew, that's a different problem. Then we have the minus degrees too, negative values. So then, yeah, you have a threshold there, like. Okay. No pressure, those are not affected. Humidity is something we calculate dynamically, that's fine. Ceiling is also linear. I need to stretch my legs. I'll keep the screen available. So the goal is to figure out this sort of transition problem, that from higher values to lower values, we are talking about the directionality of the wind, right? From here to here, it's a smoother change than this going all the way down to this value. If we consider the change, an absolute change, we have 300 degrees of change, but essentially it's 60 degrees of change. So we have to kind of have to know whether it's easier to go from here to here in this direction or in this direction. And the same rule applies when we are in here and we want to go to 330. We'd rather go this way, to the left. I will think about this while I'm stretching my legs, and I'll be back soon. Let's continue. So let's do some basic math in our mind. This is something we don't need. So assume the first, well, we have access to first row and the predecessor and successor, right? 310. So if you take the difference, it's minus 10. That's fine. So these are still simpler cases. We'll deal with these problems anyway, but maybe we'll catch a pattern in the switching over case that we will apply that overall to all other cases. So let's say from 330 we go to 30. Okay, then it's 300. So this is what we can do versus, so instead of doing a minus b, we can do 2 minus 1. So that would give us minus 270. Okay. So obviously, from 330 to 30, going this way is shorter. Okay. So assuming we are going from left to right, from 330 to 30, because that's how we'll kind of read from top to bottom to in the Excel rows. This is a higher cost. Let's assume that mathematically. Whereas this one is now we have two ways of interpreting this. You can either take like a min-max problem. It's like this is, what am I trying to say? Take the absolute value. So this minus 270 is actually 270, but compared to this, it's a shorter distance, right? What was the second way I thought? It was sort of like min-max between this one and this one, which would take the minimum of these two values, which is this case. Essentially, it's the same idea. I think I did a mistake here. This is 330, man. What am I doing? Yeah. So, okay, now it's the min-max problem, not absolute problem. The absolute value will be the distance is still the same, but the absolute value is the same, but if we turn this into a min-max problem, such as I'm really making things up right now. Something like this. Okay. So then we are trying to do something like this. If this gives us G, then we need to do something like for the next value, for example, we should pick something like 350. Or if this is just one simple value, it should be 360. That's the whole other interval problem. That's a separate case. But let's say kind of writing the code in my mind right now. If it's G here, that's minimum. We do something like this, number-wise. It's as if we pretend that this is 360 more, which is going to be 390. Now you take difference 330 from the original value, which is 360. Sorry, 60. Essentially, we want to divide this into 2. And the 2 is because, well, you have a beginning, like just one row, another row in between. Like you're dividing value into 2, basically. So this will give 30. And this 30 is either something you add to the original condition 330 or something that you subtract from the second condition. Either way, this is going to give us, this is where we have to be careful. By this we actually mean 360, but we add this 30 to 330, which then comes to 360. Because the minimum is 1, it's never 0. If we take it from the second row, the successor, 30 minus 30 would give us 0. That's not a good case. So let's try some other case. Let's assume we are comparing 330 versus 60 degrees. This is still the same going clockwise case, right? So our fx is 330 minus 60, which is 270. And then it's writing it like this. Then we have minus 330, which is always going to be the same number, same distance, except it's in the minus. So then we do something like this. This gives us G, which means I use my own logic. 60 plus 360 is 420. Okay. Then you do 330, which gives you 90 degrees difference. And that's the 90 that we want to cover as a short distance. This is, again, we assume it's the same interval. It's just one cell, 45 degrees. And we always want to add this to the original fx kind of condition, which is 330. Except in this case, we will have problems like this. 330 plus 45. And we do modulo, let's say 360, right? So we want to take the remainder. This is going to result in 15, and we'll maybe round it down to 10 or 20. We do it 20. So if you look here, from 330 to 60, this is kind of a perfect case actually. This is 15 here, right? So it's okay to be either here at 10 or 20. We want to divide this into one more interval. If it's of course one more interval, then this would have to be divided by 3, and it's increments of 30. So from here to here to here, we'll deal with this modular case. It's part of the equation. Okay, just gonna answer a message. Okay. Then we have the opposite case. We want to go from 60 to 330. Let's also simulate that case too. We have minor problems here, but we'll fix those. So we want to simulate 60 versus 330. So by this rule, we want to do something like this, which is essentially this problem, but and then we have g of x 330 minus 60 is 270. And the minimum between these two is f. If that's the case, which is what, 60. So it's either 15 or 20, but we want to come down from 60 to either 15 or 20. So then the next value will be minus 330. Sorry, 330. But we go from here to here to here instead of this way. If so if we apply the same formula, which is not going to be meaningful, actually it will be meaningful. Because if I take when I say minimum f and g, I'm basically taking the value. I'm deciding the minimum of f and g based on this, but if it's g, I'm taking the successor's original value, not really these values. In the case of f, I'm taking this. If I put 60 here, and if the rest of the formula is the same, I'm still going to have 15 or 20, which means from here I'm actually still seeking this value, which checks out. So this is good because this was just a slightly derivated form of this, but Assume this is the same thing as this, but really this case versus either one of these is the opposite case, which is when we want to go counterclockwise or from here clockwise. So in both cases, we seem to end up here, which is a good case. I think I may be able to write this before dinner break. We were in user form in this area. We will write probably write a function to check something. Just function like this. Imagine this min here is our function. So min fg, it gives g, find the g's original value. Like we need a reference, okay. I hope there's a min function. I do remember something so common didn't exist. Like array length doesn't exist in VB. I don't want to believe there's no min-max function. Jesus. Okay. It doesn't look like it exists here, but okay. VB minimum. Worksheet function max. Holy moly. IIF. Worksheet function max. Sheet. It's part of this madness. Create a copy of this sheet. Oh, this is using Excel's formulas. I see. It doesn't exist in VBA, but it kind of utilizes Excel and So if this is true, do this. If it's false, it's this. That's what they were doing here. When you say expression, what do you really mean? Something like this? Let's say if just want to understand this function, because maybe I need to use minimum maximum for sure, but let's just pretend predecessor is bigger than successor. What I want to test is, this is the true part, and I do q q q, okay? Then here I say yes, relax, relax. Message box, say you just put ASD, and this is another function where we do q, and this is failing because returns one of two parts. It returns, okay, but I see. I cannot use it as a pointer to run an expression. Can do it by I return the reference of the function and I call the function, but what's the point? Let me look at my formula here. So let's delete this row. It's confusing. So let's pretend here that we have everything we need. We have the predecessor as a variant. So we do write something like determine if clockwise or counterclockwise is a shorter path, shorter distance. So we do something like predecessor minus successor. Okay, this is what? F of x, something like that. We do something like let's code f as variant f. Then we do g okay. Let's take that minimum maximum. It's done. You could use worksheet functions too, mind you, but I mean, a lot of typing. Utils. This. Done. So where are we here? This one. So you do something like if in f and g if it's g, then follow the formula. Actually, it didn't matter because I've been using the same formula, right? The distribution will be a different effort. We're assuming we are only after finding one value right now, and it's either this or this, or achieving this result coming from the other end. This is the formula. So whatever the minimum is, but here's the problem. When I look this up, this is where I need the predecessor or successor. That's why I need to do this. Because when I say G, if the minimum is G, what I mean is go and take the successor's value, not exactly the operations value, which means G, because here it's actually minus 27. This is the successor case. So there is going to be a similar formula, like what are you doing? It assumes it's a function. Fuck. Okay, doesn't matter. Predecessor, it's the same idea. 360, that's also going to fail right now. Let's type and if. So we are kind of done, and so that means the value we are providing here is either successor or predecessor. So in this case, if G is the minimum, we take G as the successor, and if it's F, we take the predecessor. And this is the value we want to use, 360. We want to do something here. Let's take all this. Let's pretend I'm writing this. 60. Then the 330 in this case is our predecessor. Let's do this. This is the number of splits we'll have. I'm hard coding this to 2. But essentially we gotta apply something like this here. How many cells are we dividing it? That interval to, right? Yes. Let's start with a simple case that we do. Active cell value is this. It's 45. We want to add that to, we always want to add this to predecessor. Which is gonna give us 375. We want to do modulo. $360, which is gonna give us 15, and we want to roll this up or down. It's right now it doesn't matter. It's we'll get 15, and that's a good enough result for us. We should be able to write something similar. What do you mean in what? There are no modulo operator. What the? Holy. What the? Jesus. Okay, so apparently we cannot do this. We gotta do mode. This has to be this. So you changed something there. Why can't you just... So you take the predecessor, you add 360. This is when we want to go counterclockwise. So we would have 330. Okay, that's the case. F. Actually, in this case now we want to go from 60 to 330. So our predecessor is 60. 60 plus 360 is 420. Minus this is 90. So this is 90 over this is 45. 45 plus see, in this case this has to be taken. Okay, and I hope this actually does minus it includes the negative values too. This might actually work. So we need one cell here. This is a weird case, but it should at least say 305. Didn't. Whoa. Okay. So let's delete this. Let's put our edge cases. 330 versus 60. 844. Really? So I'm putting a breakpoint here. The fact that in both cases it said 3, like 844 is to debug. Debug? Oh. Now I'm not looking at the values, I'm looking at the row numbers. Okay. This is predecessor row, not exactly value. Row. Okay. Yes, reset, please. Thank you. Let's do underscore row. What we need is the value, which is cells. This is a row. Active cell. Relax. Column. Value. Which actually gets the value by default. Then we do something like that for this one, except it's this. Then we swap the cases, do something like this. we put minus. So and here we have to work with the values too. So this is repeating. So I gotta do something like take this. You relax. So value equals this. Then you have okay, and here we use this one for this one here. This might work. Remove this. Yeah, let's go. So that is fine. So perfect, 15. The whole other thing is just we'll fix the increments of 10 later. This is a fucked up case. So what happens here exactly? From 330 to 60. From 330 to 60, you knew how to go for one of these. Put 30, I'm curious what it's going to do. 0. We could easily convert it to 360. If it's 0, force it to 360, that's fine. I'm curious about 92. So that's 30. Perfect. However, from 330 to 310, this should be 320, for example. It's not. So what exactly happened here? So which one of these is the responsible party here? This one. Successor value is 310, predecessor is 330. Does it make sense? So 310, 360, that's 670 minus this, which is 340 over 2, 170 plus this 500. Of course, modulo is this, and modulo is 500 Where is this going wrong? Let's ask more extreme questions. Comparison between 330 and 120. Because we will eventually introduce multiple cells, right? So we will have to distribute maybe that interval into 6 cells. So then we'll have like 30 degrees increment. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe like 5 cells, okay? So naturally from 330 to 120, it makes sense to go this way. So what if we did something weird, but this may be dumb, but this result is bigger than 1, obviously. So if we want to go between 330 to 300, it's still more than 1. What was I thinking? I thought like this, we do something like we always take like 1 off. If this result is less than 1, it's closer this way. Let me think of that logic. Let's assume 330 is the start point. 150 is the absolute worst case, 150. So we are looking for 120 and 180. So following this logic, this or this minus 1 is this. So we are thinking if this is more than 1, we have to go clockwise. If you do this minus 1, it's less than 1. So we have to go counterclockwise. So that logic checks out. I think the reason why I'm doing this exercise is because this is kind of weird, but because this is 360, right? And this is 180. If I divide it, it would be 2 minus 1, 1. It's the 1 is right in the middle, so you can go either way, clockwise, counterclockwise. So if the values are slightly twisted, let's say 330 to, like even in this case, 150, right? This is kind of a weird case, but There's a chance that if the gap is larger, we would actually find a case where it could be directly opposite, but I doubt it. Because things have been going gradually, there's a rare chance, yeah, again, like this could be a big gap and then 180 difference. Or I do this in a much simpler, saner way. What if we compared it to the absolute zero or 360? In the case of 330 to 60, let's say that's a complicated case. Let's start with the more obvious case. Say like this one, which doesn't seem to be working, but so from 330 to 360, we need to go 30. From 310 to 360, we need to go 50. And what was I thinking? Let's see. Even here, 300 versus 330. This goes 30 degrees. This goes 60 degrees. And then between this one and this one, this has to go 60 absolute. This has to go 30. But if we consider this 60 and this 360, so the difference is it's minus 300. And this is well, dinner will happen in 10-15 minutes. I will refuel and come back. Maybe I'll think about that, but until then, let's do our best. Just to recap, in switching sign, let's say, right? Just going over the 360 line. It doesn't matter whether this is 60 and this is 330, or this is 330, this is 60. We would still want this to be 15 degrees. Doesn't matter. You could be coming from this to this, or you could be coming from here to here. The in-between value should always be 15. So it's not about which number is bigger than the other one. But Open another one of these. We did, I'm calling it predecessor value, this plus S, which is 390. If this modulo 360 is, obviously this is bigger than 1, or sorry, this, it's positive, it's 30, okay, is positive. Because we don't care about which way it goes, this is always going to be this. But this is when we are comparing 330 to 60, sort of, let's say, tuples. Okay. We are comparing 330 to 310. Again, which direction we go doesn't matter. Which row comes first. This same formula is gonna give us 640 modulo 360 is going to give us 280. That's always positive too. But it's as if at this point we want to kind of half things, because we want to understand which half, like which direction we go. This is less than this. Trying to create some kind of condition that I can work against. Let's try 210 to 150. E plus S is 360, interestingly enough. And this is going to give us 0. And what does this tell us? Because this is the perfect scenario where the middle value should be 180. This might be an edge case where the modulo is 0. Do its special case. 270 to 30 degrees. It still makes sense to go clockwise. This is 330, I mean 300. And this is going to give us 0. 1 minute. Okay, so dinner is almost here, so we'll continue after the break. Okay, let's continue. I just thought of something that can apply, since this wasn't really going anywhere, right? 300. It kind of has some bearing, but I'm having a hard time interpreting it. Let's turn on our compass. So what if we did something like, that's essentially kind of what we were doing initially, you know, with the difference. So if the difference is we could we could treat this two ways, from 330 to 60 as difference. So in that case, we will do something like, for this pair, we are interested in this. This is bigger than 180. So it says if we want this to be less than 180, because from 330 to 60, without looking at a circular structure like this, the meaning usually is that we are going down to 300, 200, 100, and like we are counting down, right? But there's 270 numbers to count down. So this is a longer path. Whereas between this and this, this is minus 270. You know, I think I'll come back to this wind functionality a bit later. It's somewhat working, but the conditions have to be more carefully selected. I will work on different kind of filler, perhaps, which is let's go all the way to the top. Let's freeze top row so we know what we are doing. We don't care about wind direction or speed at this point. Let's do that. Okay, then let's go back, and we want to get rid of these two. Okay, what I'm going to do is speed. Speed is something we can take care of. For example, this one. So let's put another button here. We duplicate this, copy and paste. It's okay. I'll put another button, which is this one should be filler wind speed, and I'll change the other one to wind direction anyway. All this wind speed. This one should be direction. Let's change this to wind there. Okay, and everything we see under here is now wind direction. To be fixed later. And we also need to do what? Wind speed. That's the next click. So for this to happen, it's like we will need this anyway. Let's just shamelessly copy it. Okay. We will most likely need this too. In fact, I'll just sort of group them like this. And this is a normal condition, I'm hoping. It has its own minimum and maximum values. We can look them up. The speed here is 0 to 900. Speed rate, yeah, we don't care about this because we are converting it to numerical values. So maximum it should be 900. There are some cases where it's where is it? In speed, this one, speed range. There is no missing value. Sometimes it's going to show 4 nines. We don't have that case. And what am I looking for? Here is the missing value, this one. So we'll kind of take the average, or we'll distribute that to the range, to the selection. So active cells value is, I mean, as dumb as it sounds right now, it's this. The successor's value, and we wanna this. And that will actually sometimes give decimal values, so we want to round things. This is filler wind speed click. So let's come here. This is wind speed. So we are expecting to see 80. Wow, when I said round, I was hoping would round things. Oh, I put. Okay, this needs another record. There. That's what we are looking for. Now let's take care of the multiple cells. So what if we had 3 cells, 6 cells? So we know how to run a loop like this. For each cell in selection, we could take the difference. Let's say there's maybe 10 difference, but 6 intervals. So then each value should be either 1 or 2, so that we distribute 10. So we'll need something like this. But this is why we need to know the selections. Well, I think I can take advantage of this. But I no longer do selection, but I do something like cells. This is a row. Plus 1 is the first cell of the selection. Active cells column is what we are looking for. This guy's value, or I can do this. And the difference between successor row and predecessor row is how many rows we have. Let's do that. Dim number of rows. We also subtract 1. If don't just do that. And just put number of rows, and this will come in handy soon. So let's comment it out. We don't do this either for now. What we want to do is this is going to look redundant, but for this one we should see 1. Okay, because it's just one cell. But if the gap was bigger, like this, we are still writing here. That one is the old one. Normally this would be empty. Okay, select it like this too. And actually this is a good case that when we are done, this should say 79 or 80. Actually, no, sorry. Difference is 5. See, we shouldn't divide it into 3. So sorry, 2. We should divide it by 3 because we want to have. Let me recap. We divide by 2. The difference here, it's 5, right? So it would be 2.5, and rounding it up, it should be 3. So from 77 to 80, that would be 1 jump. And then because each time we want to increment it by 3, then this one would go over 82. We don't want that, so we want something like 1.7. All the like decimals, because 5 over 3 is 1.7, right? So that would round up to 2, so this would be 79, and then another 2, this would be 81, so will be it's below the range, this limit, which means when I said 2, I actually should not make that. Sorry, when I said -1, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in this. Okay. So this is actually not number of rows. This is number of divisions, number of intervals. Okay. And the difference is we can do something like this. Dim. And each interval is going to be such that the difference between successor value, which is this, we are interested in the value this time. Successor value, predecessor value. Okay. We want to run this. So this is going to be divided this, but you gotta define this first. Okay. Now when we do let's write the interval as a check. So let's select these two. We should see 2. Yeah. So then we can do 79 here and 81 here. That will be in for each cell in selection. We do cell equals we keep a count somewhere. We could do count times interval, or we could write a formula. This has a potential to be generic enough sub. There's nothing here specific to wind speed. Because min maxes will be controlled somewhere else. So let's do something dumb. Let's say each cell is the interval without all this. For each cell in selection. Shouldn't do this, right? Okay. Wait a minute. What if I did cell row? Whoa, okay. So I am kind of writing a cell row -1 active column, active cell column. That's the cell. Plus interval. Let's just get the value too. This might work. Yeah. Awesome. So technically this button could make this one work too. So it will be 245. No, I'm dividing 10 by 3. So this will be 243, 246, then 250. Yeah. The wind's rule is different, but it's the same logic in terms of cell value writing. We could definitely use that in ceiling visibility and sea level pressure. Visibility is also like they sometimes have those not increments of 10 values. Ceiling, I think I have to double check, but let's just double check now. Sky condition, ceiling, this is the one. And which one I'm looking for? Height dimension, that's the one. Which is the first field, 5, length of 5, right? This is the one. Meters 1. Yeah, so it doesn't say anything about tens or whatever, increments of 10, but it just happened to be measured like that. Scale is 1, 2, it's not like the last digit is dropped. So we could make this sub a generic sub there. Temperature is, I'm willing to try. There is where was it? Let's change this due to, or temperature and due to this done. Let's get rid of the quality for temperature and due. So here is let's just try to do this case, which is kind of extreme. I like that. So 3, 3, another 3, another 3, and then let's see if we can go from minuses to pluses. Pluses to pluses. Which should be somewhere in March. Yes. It's cold enough here. Or here, okay. By the way, this is actually 10 scale 10, but that doesn't matter because we are interested in numerical values, not the scale. This is an interesting situation. So this is actually minus 2 degrees, and this is 0.1 degrees. Let me see how it's going to be interpreted after this. Actually checks out in my mind. Minus 0.4, slightly under 0, slightly over 0. That actually checks out. So I think we could generalize this for this too. This definitely. We will assume this this could actually have some arbitrary values like ceiling, do this. Ceiling quality, get rid of its ceiling. Like for example, get rid of all this. This is actually an okay case. Mind you, just a sec. But I might have a case where the difference is not divisible perfectly. Really? Yeah, like look at this case. Between 140, it's like 1320, and this one. So it's like 1340. So we do this over 5. 268. And yet it's 264 here. What's going on? Did I 1320? Actually, yeah, 264. So then, okay, 264. It's kind of a special case that it should be most likely 1400 and this one 1670. Maybe I'll create a function that returns this value that we say finish it so that the last number is 0. Something like that. Oh, I just noticed the camera is off. Okay. I'm still thinking about the wind direction. So let's change the button's title or caption. Let's call this where is it here? Fill the gap. And let's also write fill the gap here too. Okay, this is going to be as generic as possible. For example, this is always going to be the same, and maybe we do this interval rounding here, following the rule of like divisible by 10, which means this has to go into a function. So the function will return an interval, and it's going to be put here. So we can actually write that. In fact, what I'm going to do is I will pretend this is that function. I'll take all this here, and this interval should be a function now. This should take some stuff, such as successor row, predecessor row, as the gap. And we use this only once, so we could actually do it this way. And all we need is these as a, say like this one, take all this, I'll swap them. These two should come first. These two come after this. Okay, and here you provide this. Smarten up. This is a row. Successor value. Predecessor. Yeah. This is complaining because do I have to do this? Fill the gap, click. So this should technically work the same way. Let's delete the gap. Yeah. And then yeah, we had other cases here too, say from 10 to -10. Yeah. So now we have a generic I call everything function. But this sub is calculating the row before and after the selection. It finds the values and it divides, it calculates the interval and it fills the gap with the interval based on those predecessor and successor values. So far so good. This is not doing the 10 case, yes. And this is actually gone. So we could have an if check here to see like for the ceiling case. Was it ceiling? Yeah, ceiling case. We will say make sure it's the 10. And we can enforce the same rule for making the wind numbers rounding to the it's sort of divisible by 10, right? Yeah. So on that note, I think I'm going to stop today. I don't know when I'll stream next, but this is going to be the next I will either finish this in the meantime or I will continue this work. during the next stream. But we are making progress in filling the missing data so we can have the proper number of hours distributed. And then the last step of this, of course, filling the gap, is to extrapolate this snow amount to this area. This is going to require a bit more advanced logic, because we cannot always assume that there is snow here, and to that end I think there is something about let me see, we need to know, we have temperature and dew, calculate RH, and based on RH let me split the, I don't need to split it, I need to know this. I probably changed something here, but I think I'm looking for a column that I did not build here. Let's see, split to bits. This one. Well, then unbreak it. There you go. So in the end, we are going to distribute this 1 centimeter to this area. And I think we will do that based on snow probability. This whole thing started off as an exercise to really know when it's supposed to snow, usually, based on this data. But of course, you cannot always backtrack and distribute the existing snow amounts to the missing previous dates, because by that logic, in Toronto between March and November, when it doesn't snow, let's say, and you look at the next possible date after March and you see November, so you take the first snow date in November and distribute it all the way back to March, then you have very little amount of snow. And in July it shouldn't snow. It doesn't make any sense, however small it is. So then whether we should have snow, then we'll figure out the value, that kind of thing. Even in the middle of winter, not every day or every hour it snows. And that depends on these humidity values. And the previous streams were about that, but to be able to write it to the proper row, we now are taking care of whether that row or that hour should exist or not. So everything is kind of coming together after a long route. It all started in the snow column. And once this is done, of course, we'll proceed to these two, which is rain. And after that, I think we might be done with this file. That we'll sanitize it, we'll apply different years of weather for different years in Toronto, and now we have other cities, so we can run this as a batch process. So maybe all these buttons will be just combined into one button, which will do a massive cleanup. So that's an ambitious goal, but it might actually lead there. But that's it for today and for this weekend, so take care.